breaking out. Can't make a stop, can't turn back now. We know that there's no room for doubt. No, we can't turn back now. I see danger in your eyes. They know we'll burn down the night. Coming just like the sunrise. You know that we gonna light it up tonight. We gonna light it up tonight. We gonna light it up just like the sunrise. We gonna light it up now.
Welcome to the HVAC Guide for Homeowners live show. My name is Josh, and we will be answering your questions live. Tonight, we do have a special guest. Sometimes we're joined by other pros in the chat who know answers to questions that I don't, which is, let's be honest, that's not hard to do. Before we get to our special guest, let's take care of a few housekeeping matters. We are streaming live to the new YouTube channel. So if you have not subscribed to that yet, make sure you do. We are no longer streaming to the old channel. The old channel has its own home. The show has its own home now. So make sure you subscribe to that. If you are listening to us on the podcast, we now stream to all the major platforms. Make sure you hit the follow and leave us a review. You know, all the fun stuff that helps us show up better. And then, of course, hitting that like and subscribe button always helps as well. Next week, we will have another awesome guest. He's one of the top HVAC contractors on the East Coast. And so make sure you tune in for that. It will be same place, same time, Tuesday nights at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific. Last but not least, before we get to the show, let's take a moment to pay the bills and thank the sponsor of tonight's show. I want to thank the sponsor of tonight's show, Easy Fit Isolator Valves. I've seen a lot of products in my years of doing HVAC and plumbing, but I haven't seen many where I've said every HVAC and plumbing service vehicle should have one of those. The Easy Fit Isolator Valve is one of those products. I personally think so many jobs in my past, having one of these would have made my and my customers' lives so much better. This valve can allow for easy installation without shutting off the main water shutoff, making so many applications possible. The homeowner or business owner stays operational while the HVAC mechanic or plumber looks like the hero. I'll put a link in the description of this video or the chat. Get yourself one today to have on hand for that emergency we all know will come. I'm feeling good, man. I've been using Google Chrome as my browser, and a lot of the problems I've been having on the live show, the big test tonight is, Tim, if you talk about something really cool, I'm going to try to do a screen share of whatever you talk about. And if it works, then I'm using Firefox as my browser tonight. It's been such a problem trying to use this software on Google Chrome in the past. So anyway, I know nobody cares about that, but I care. So, that's why I'm talking about it. That said, tonight's guest is an expert in the HVAC industry. He has almost 3 decades of experience and somehow is only 25 years old. I don't know how that works. He's widely known for being a no-nonsense, common sense voice for many looking to do things right. He posts content on his Instagram and YouTube channels with light-hearted jabs at others doing low-par work, trying to be pretenders at being HVAC gurus. Tim has worked as a service technician, installer, designer, business owner, and instructor and brings this all-encompassing knowledge to many looking to learn to do things the right way. Everyone, please welcome Tim DeStasio. Let's go.
I've never gotten an intro like that.
They were lined up early this morning for you.
Man, yeah, they were camping out the night before. Heck yeah.
Good enough. Well, thanks for coming on, man. I love your content. I've been following you for a long time, and I appreciate you taking time to hang out with us.
Thank you.
So
yeah. Been a cool,
go ahead.
It's been a cool ride. I mean, I've been posting a little bit more here lately, and I've gotten into the 2-minute or the minute-and-a-half reels, and so my exposure has probably tripled on Instagram and Facebook just in the last few months. Yeah, I'm glad that more people are learning from me. That's why I do it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think the first time I ever saw you, which I know you were around way before that, but I remember you were taking a bunch of selfies at the symposium or something with, you know, a bunch of different guys, and I was like, who is this guy taking all these, you know, and for some reason that popped up on my feed in some way. So
yeah, I was like, who does he think he is? No, I've been going to the symposium ever since it started. During COVID, I think there was 1 or 2 that I couldn't go to just because things didn't work out, but that has been like, that's my destination every year. And it's just a great learning opportunity. I've had the privilege of actually presenting last year, co-presenting with a few bigger names, and this year I'll be co-presenting again. So it is a great place to come and get some training.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Do you know what topic yet, or?
Yeah, I'll be presenting again with the same folks I was co-presenting last time. I'll be with Santa Fe Dehumidifiers and Haven, which was a guest on your show not too long ago. So they'll be doing some stuff and kind of featuring some of the installs and the applications on both of those products that I've used, because I use them a lot. I've got them here at my house. I tinker around with them and try to figure out new ways of using them. And they're 2 great products.
I feel like, and I'm very curious what your insight is on this, because honestly, I'll just tell you, I don't feel like I'm the smartest person in the room tonight. I sometimes, you know, when I'm, you know how it is, sometimes you're around certain people and you're like, got it. I know who I'm talking to.
We're in trouble then. We're in trouble. Is there a third person in the room? Because I know.
I do wonder what your thought is on this. I feel like there's been a bigger push than ever, probably in the last, I want to say 5 years, and maybe it's because of the internet, but I don't know. I just feel like there's this sense of guys like you and several others that people follow in our industry. There's just this big push to do things the right way. And there's, you know, there's no gray area on that. Like, you're going to do it right, or you're just wrong, or you're a hack, or whatever, you know, they call you. Do you see that too? Or am I off base?
I think that with more people like yourself, and I'm trying to be in that group also, of just putting out content and raising awareness of best practices. Hopefully we're educating the people that are willing to be educated. Not that I have all the answers. I get my training from people at the symposium. There are people a lot smarter than I am that I sit and I listen to intently. But I think with that, there are some folks that have risen to the top, and I don't think I'm one of them yet, that have really showcased their work. I think about installations and just the quality and just how clean installs look, and there's a few Instagram heroes that come to mind, and they're just showing that you can do a better job. You can take your time and do things better. What I try to do is not, there isn't one good way of doing it. There's a lot of different good ways, but there are some best practices and some principles that we can apply so that we can make the best decisions. And often the decisions are made, what's the easiest thing and the cheapest thing for the installer or the contractor to get away with and not get a callback. And that can't be the bar that we set it at, or it can't be, well, this is how I was taught 20 years ago. And the guy that taught me that was taught by the person before him 30 years ago. So now we're talking about 50 years ago, at least, of a practice or a method. And, times change, technology changes, equipment changes, and we can't live in the past like that. So, yeah, I hopefully it's through education that we're going to make the industry better. I don't want to shame anybody and make them get better. The little reaction videos that I make are I just do that. Something comes up and I'm like, I think I have a few funny things to say about it. I honestly do not think that I'm going to change the industry that way. I'm just trying to get a couple of laughs. And but really, I think the best way that we change this industry and make it better is by educating the next generation and showing them the right way of doing things. That way, when the old head tries to tell them the wrong way of doing it, they at least know, okay, well, I got to do it his way. But I know that once I'm in a truck by myself, I'm going to do it the better way, because I don't want to be a hack like that guy. I want to be able to post my work and be admired like some of these Instagram heroes. And so I think social media's really done this industry some good in that aspect.
Yeah, I love your point about learning from, somebody that maybe they weren't doing things correctly. I make a joke, and I do a A2L class at my new job, and I make a joke all the time, and it's actually true. The guy that I learned under, he didn't know how to do a proper subcool measurement until 410A came out. TXVs had come out for a while, but he still didn't. He would just be like, "What's your outdoor temperature, Griffin? Just get it close to this head pressure and it'll blow cold."
Yeah.
And by gosh, he was right with R22. But
Yeah.
yeah.
The old equipment it's sort of like working on an old car. I mean, the old cars from the 60s and 70s, they had carburetors in them. You could tune them almost by listening to them. There wasn't a lot of technology there. It was more mechanical than it was electronic or electrical. And so people were able to do some pretty awesome things and use some really good rules of thumb. But technology has changed, and we just simply cannot do that anymore. And I love the fact that A2Ls, fortunately, hopefully everybody's going through some A2L training, and just so they can be reminded. But really, when it comes to A2Ls, we're not doing anything any different than what we were always supposed to do. Just now, it's a little bit more important because A2L is not going to be as forgiving as R12 and R22 was. And so that's a good thing. Everyone's going to have to take a refresher class, and maybe it's just one more voice that's telling them, use proper evacuation procedures, you braze with nitrogen, flow nitrogen when you're brazing, set up a perimeter around where you're brazing. Don't be lighting a cigarette while you're striking a torch. All that stuff we were kind of supposed to always keep in mind to begin with, and now it's kind of important now.
Yeah. Yeah, I know I watched some of your you were on another show recently, and you were talking a lot about POE oil, and somebody asked me the question, and I just simply don't know the answer, and I'm wondering if why do we use POE oil instead of mineral oil with today's refrigerants? Can mineral oil just not work with them because the pressures, or why don't we still use mineral oil?
Some refrigerants are a little bit more forgiving. You don't have to get all the mineral oil out. A little bit can kind of flow with the POE oil. It tends to carry with the refrigerant a little bit more, so you get the oil back to the compressor. From a chemical standpoint, I really couldn't speak to that. It's probably something I need to read up on. So
Same.
I don't want
That's
somebody
why I
making a
asked.
reaction video out of this podcast on me. So I'm gonna just leave it at that. But what we do know is that POE oil and then PV oil, PVE oil, which is what we're going to see in a lot of the A2Ls, they're very hydroscopic. And so once they absorb moisture, which is what hydroscopic means, they don't give it back. And so mineral oil, you could get the system pretty wet and you could pull it out. You could run nitrogen across it. You can use your vacuum pump and you could pull it out. the new oils are not as forgiving. So again, it's just, we've got to use these best practices now because it really matters now.
Yeah, well, and the fact that they become acidic if you don't do things properly. And
Absolutely.
so
Yeah.
I feel like a spotlight's been put on that more recently than ever,
Mhm.
probably because of the A2L refrigerants.
Yeah, we just have to do things better. There's a nice question there in the comments about putting a filter dryer on the liquid line. Liquid line is going to handle the most refrigerant. It's going to see the refrigerant in liquid form. And also, typically, the liquid line comes right before the expansion valve in cooling mode, where you're going to get there's going to be a screen, there's an orifice there, there's something that's going to get clogged up. And so the filter part of the filter dryer hopefully is going to catch that debris. The desiccant material in the dryer is there to pick up whatever the vacuum pump didn't. And so it's not a miracle material. It has its limits. So it's just not an excuse to, well, I'm going to, like the one video that I did a reaction to, I'm just going to spray the water hose around open lines and, I'll throw a dryer in there and pull a vacuum and, the heck with it. We still have to use those proper service procedures.
I saw in a brochure recently, and I'm not going to mention any names because Lord knows I have enough enemies in this industry already. But there was a manufacturer posted in their brochure that it said filter dryer optional, and I was like, really? So it's an
Wow.
option. It's an upgrade.
Yeah, I don't know about all that. I know that a lot of mini split manufacturers, the main reason why they want us to use flares, like there's flare connections on both ends, is because they don't trust us to braze. Because all the orifices are so small in some of those units. They're like, we know you don't flow with the nitrogen. We know you don't purge nitrogen at the very end. We know you braze dirty. And we're tired of getting called warranty parts back. So we're going to make the flare, and the worst thing that's going to happen is the flare is going to leak, and that's on you. So but yeah, it goes back to the same thing. Like we're trying to idiot proof certain things out of the industry because unfortunately, well, there's a lot of idiots out there. So buyer beware.
I'm being told that some of the manufacturers, when the A2L equipment's coming out, that they're going, and I say I'm being told because I don't know if this is a rumor or somebody just trying to sell me something, but they're saying that they're really going to lean into these press fittings more, which I'm not saying is a bad thing. We all have our own opinions, but since guys don't braze properly and they don't do a lot of the things they should be doing, maybe that's not necessarily a bad thing. But have you heard that the manufacturers are going to lean in and they're going to leave longer stubs on the service ports and things like that?
I have, and I've actually seen, I think it may have been Gary McCready, HVAC Know-It-All. He posted a brand new unit. Somebody did that had them from the factory, like the liquid and suction line that goes from the indoor cold to the outdoor section of the package unit had press fittings from the factory. I don't personally have a problem with press fittings. They seem to hold up pretty good. They've been around for a while. I think, again, nothing is idiot proof. You still have to cut the pipe and deburr it, and you have to do things the right way for them to work. And typically when they start seeing failures, it's because of an installer error. So I think it's a good thing, and it's cleaner, it's safer. We don't have to pull hot work permits when we're doing industrial work. That was the biggest pain in the neck for me when I was doing industrial work, is that you had to go find the safety guy, and they had to do all this stuff just so you could strike a torch and fix something that wasn't even in a dangerous area. It was in the office. It was above the ceiling in an office. But because that office was connected to a plant that somewhere there had some flammable, the whole site, you had to pull a hot work permit. And it was just a pain. And, if we could get away with that with a press tool, how's that a bad thing?
Yeah. Yeah. I feel the same way. I felt like when they first came out, a lot of us were like, I don't want to be first in line,
Right.
but they've been around a minute now. And I feel like they've been around long enough to where I'm sure that if there were any kinks, they're worked out. And, I've got friends that's all they're doing now. They don't have to drag their, torch and all that off their truck anymore. They grab that little handy dandy tool, they slap the unit in and get her under vacuum. It's pretty impressive actually. So
yeah, it would really make installs, even residential installs, just you could do those presses in a quarter of the time it takes to braze properly. You still have to pressure test with nitrogen. You still want to purge and get any debris or copper shavings out of the system. And you still need to pull a good vacuum. But man, the amount of debris that you're not introducing to the system is huge.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Very cool. Well, take me back to a young Tim. How did you end up here, sir?
Man, well, it's funny. Yeah, when you introduced me, you said he's been doing HVAC for almost 3 decades. I'm like, good grief, that sounds a lot worse than 25 or over 25 years.
I literally changed your words when I think you sent me 25 years, and I was like, well, maybe it's meant 26 now. So I'm going to say,
it's over 25 years. I got started in 90. Well, I started taking HVAC in 97. In school. So so when I was in high school, my senior year in 97, there was a vocational school that was connected to the high schools in my county in North Carolina. And they offered heating and air for the first year. And so I was kind of going back and forth between, I thought I was going to get into electronics, but I kind of saw all the circuit cities were starting to close up and all the radio shacks were closing up. I'm like, I don't know if I want to career in electronics repair. And I'm glad I didn't go with that. But in HVAC, the course was starting there. And so I signed up for that, and just we had to set up the lab. We had all the equipment, all the tools were sitting on pallets, and we had to put everything together. So my first exposure to HVAC was installing units in this lab. We were putting everything together and learning as we went. It was great. I just fell in love with it because I could do some electronics work, electrical work, plumbing, all the trades that are encompassed within HVAC that you have to know something about. And so I ended up graduating with some credits that transferred to the community college that was also connected to this program. So I ended up getting my associate's degree in a shorter period of time. And during that time, I started going in the evenings so that I could work, and I landed a job with a pretty large industrial mechanical contractor in the area. They were pretty well known in the area. We did a lot of, again, we're talking about the late 90s, early 2000s, a lot of textile mills. Furniture was really big in central North Carolina. Tobacco, of course, anywhere in the South. Tobacco we had several of those plants there that the company would do work for. And then all of a sudden 9/11 happened. And the economy changed, and all those manufacturing plants seemed to leave North Carolina almost overnight. And we went to like a little mini recession here. And the company that I worked for almost, I think they were swirling around the toilet bowl, is how they described it. There was a bunch of layoffs. Like, go figure that in HVAC, they were laying off a bunch of service technicians and installers. But it's because all this work went away, and I guess they didn't see it coming. Well, they adapted, they retooled. When that void was created in the area, pharmaceuticals, clean rooms, and data centers started coming in. The aviation industry started moving in. And so that company started picking up that work. And that was really cool because then I got to start working on a bunch of clean rooms and data centers. And I was working on chillers and process chillers and Liebert data center units. And I just loved it. And I worked for that company for 12 years. I mean, that's where I cut my teeth. They made me, they gave me a great start. I'm very grateful. But at some point in time, I started just getting the itch that, I want to try out some ideas of my own. And obviously, when you're working for a company, you're a technician. They don't have to do things the way you think they should be done. It's their company. So I decided to get licensed in North Carolina to be a contractor. So for about a year, that's all I did was study for that license test. So I took prep classes, and I learned about the codes, read the code books, and then I got introduced to the ACCA manuals, Manual J, Manual S, Manual D. And all of a sudden I realized, wow, I really like this stuff, HVAC design, doing calculations. And then there's this thing called the building envelope that has a lot to do with how people feel comfortable. And I've never had to deal with the building envelope before in industrial HVAC. We showed up, the chiller was broken, the pump was broken, the motor was fried. We fixed the equipment, then we left. I never had to think about how the building was built, the insulation levels, how airtight it was. We didn't even think about how leaky our ducts were. Like, it was the Wild West, man. And I really got interested in that. So when I passed my contractor's exam and I started my own business, I sought out home performance contractors, people that did weatherization of homes. And now we're talking about somewhere a few years after the Great Recession, some big government money was coming in to weatherize homes. And there was a lot of that work. And I kind of rode the coattails of a few local home performance contractors that did blower door tests. And they were just looking for an HVAC contractor that spoke their language, somebody that didn't want to fix every problem with a new unit. And I was, just the answer to a prayer for them. And I built a business doing HVAC service work, on doing residential work with those contractors. I got tons of service agreements because all of their customers became my customers. And then I still did commercial industrial work. A lot of my industrial customers followed me along. I took care of plants from, for 20 years. And then at some point during the pandemic, I built my company to about 9 people, and I got burned out. Just one day I realized, man, I was making more money when I was riding in the truck by myself than I am trying to chase my installers that weren't doing good work, and just babysitting and trying to cater to everybody's specific needs. And I just realized that owning a big company and being an employer was not my strength. My strength was being an HVAC practitioner. And I'd gotten away from that strength. I mean, I was doing very little HVAC work, and I was doing a lot of warranty work and a lot of putting out fires and a lot of babysitting. And that's not my skill set. And during the pandemic, it was kind of a weird time because there was a spike in HVAC acquisitions, and there were you could get pretty good money for a small business, and a small business that was profitable, but wasn't setting any records. And so I was able to find a buyer and sold the company.
What year was that?
2022. I sold my company.
Okay, yeah, because I heard that too. There was like a wave of companies being bought, and I'd like to. I'm pretty sure I caught the last bit of that wave.
Yeah,
because I sold mine at the beginning of 2024. So
good for you. Yeah. So we took advantage of that and just kind of hit the reset button. And of course, I don't know if you had to sign a non-compete when you sold yours, but I had to sign one when I sold mine. And I had no problem signing it because I kind of wanted to move to the coast anyway of North Carolina. We've been going to the beach here for years, and just it always seemed like out of reach. It's like, well, I'd love to move here, but what about the business? And so we decided to just move here to Southport, Oak Island area, and we love it here. And I just opened up a one-man consulting, design, service, and training company. I want to help contractors get better. I want to help homeowners figure out their problems, whether it's an HVAC performance problem or a home performance problem, and also focus on HVAC design nationwide. If anybody around the country is building a home and they don't trust their contractor to design it properly, I can produce a design that looks very much like a set of construction drawings that you would see a commercial building being built. And it's a turnkey job. I mean, I've got wiring diagrams, duct details, everything that a contractor needs to be handed, and say, here, you can use the means and methods that you think best to put this design in. But I've even shown you how to hook up the Haven, the dehumidifier, the thermostat, all that stuff. It's a turnkey design. And you'd be surprised how many people want to go with that because they just want results. They want it to work.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's funny how I feel like my experience has mirrored yours a little bit on the front of, I told my wife, I signed that non-compete, and if we ever have to, if I wanted to start another business, we just move, you know, further down the state a little bit, and open it elsewhere if I
Yep.
absolutely had to.
Yeah.
But I'm the same way with you. I think you really put it in. Oh, that was a good summary of how I was feeling. At one point, I enjoyed being a business owner. I enjoyed not having a boss, but I just hated being a punching bag at times, and it wore on me. I couldn't turn it off. Was my biggest issue.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, definitely. It's a tough world out there, and the pandemic made it harder because you inserted this element of some employees didn't feel comfortable coming in, some homeowners didn't feel comfortable with you coming in, some employees felt very comfortable coming in and like sneezing all over you, and then it was just this weird time. We didn't know who to
yeah,
believe in the news, and it was just all this uncertainty and division, and yeah, it just wasn't fun anymore. It used to be fun. And so some people can get over the hump and they can build a business that practically runs themselves. That's a special skill set there. And I just realized that my special skill set is HVAC uh, service and design and home performance and diagnosis. And so let me go back to doing what I'm actually good at.
yeah, sounds like it. If you're presenting at the symposium, I mean, that's pretty cool.
I fooled
Emery
somebody.
Emery wants to know if you've got a brand you're a fan of.
Yeah, I mean, I will. I'll tell you the brand that I put in my house, and it's a Bosch unit. I really like their technology and how you can get an inverter for practically the price of a two-stage outdoor unit, but it's not your traditional communicating inverter that you can still use 24-volt controls, because I love the Ecobee thermostat and all the insights and options that you get with that. I don't like communicating thermostats. I've never seen one that I was like, yeah, I just like the feel of this thing, and the data that it gives back to me. I didn't want to be pigeonholed with a thermostat. So, and I love the fact that the Bosch unit maintains a constant, or it strives to maintain a constant suction pressure, which translates to an indoor coil temperature. And so now you can set your system capacity simply by choosing a faster or slower blower speed. And then the outdoor unit just says, I'm not seeing as much heat load on this thing. I'll just go ahead and slow down or ride with the load. So now, you can really dial in the system when you've got a two-stage air handler, and you can set up those two blower speeds, and your compressor has just got you in the background. You're always going to have a 44-degree coil. And really with the Bosch, what I learned, you actually have a much colder coil if you do some tricks, and I made a video about it. And I just like the way it thinks. And so far, it's been really good to me. And I've just seen so many problems with other inverter units, especially during the pandemic. Couldn't get parts for them. Microchannel coils are leaking. I just didn't see those issues at a Bosch. Just put a surge protector on it and hope you don't get struck by lightning. And I haven't had any problems with them.
What do you think of them buying JCI?
I mean, that's pretty cool. I mean, they got to be doing something right if they're buying, a company like that. And they just seem like they're going in the right direction.
It'll be interesting to see what comes out of that. Is how they influence one another, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Right.
which one will influence the other more. I think we both would rather Bosch influence JCI more than the other way around. But I mean, you just never know.
Well, it's sort of like, your sponsor there is Daikin, and they bought Goodman. And so, it seemed like the better of the two companies bought out the one that needed some help. And so, hopefully that's the story here. It could have been like a few years ago, Kmart bought Sears. And I was like, first of all, how did Kmart come up with enough money to buy Sears? They're both going out of business, and they both are. I don't think that's the case here. I think he just got, I guess they saw an opportunity there. There were some reliability issues with York, just like there was with a lot of other companies, and I think Bosch has got it going on.
Tech Junkie's got a more in-depth question here. Would you do a duct redesign if just something like a small leak on a main trunk line? I have some issues with my main line and want them fixed. I got turbulence, but the static pressure is only 0.4 supposedly. Supposedly. I like how he put that at the end. Supposedly.
Well, so we got to test it. So you definitely want to let's start before you even check static pressure. We need to make sure that our blower wheel and our indoor coil are clean as a pin, because even a small layer of dust is going to throw that static pressure off. If you've got a little bit of dust on your blower wheel, your 0.4, when you compare that or against your blower chart, it doesn't matter. It doesn't work because that blower chart was made with a clean blower wheel. So make sure those things are clean. 0.4 is not too bad. You shouldn't have any problem moving your total airflow. So then it's a matter of, is your total airflow getting where it should go? So is it going to the right rooms, or do you have a balancing issue, or is it leaking all out? And with a supply duct, it's kind of hard to do a duct leak screening. I can do one with a return duct just by checking the dew point at the grill versus at the plenum. But supply duct, you can't really do that. So you'd have to do a duct leakage test and go find that leak and see if it's big enough to actually be your problem.
I think for me, if I may, his second sentence says, I have some issues with my main line and I want them fixed. I think for me, it would be, what are those issues? Maybe the answer is let's completely start over, but it may be just, maybe we need to come up with a few solutions here. So but that's interesting. Ryan says, do you know any good contractors in Charlotte?
I may. I'm kind of drawing a blank, but if you're talking about contractors that do total home performance, let me think on that a little bit as we continue to go further. I'll put a message in my I'm in a Facebook room or a group with like-minded contractors, and they're usually pretty quick to respond.
Uh-oh, did we lose you? I think we lost him. Wonder if he had a power outage or something. No, he's still there. I think we lost you there.
Yeah, I know. My USB got unplugged. Sorry, hang on.
Oh, no, you're good. I was like, what happened?
Yeah, let me, I got the wrong camera, the wrong microphone. I'm sorry. Okay, that's a better camera. You can see all my wrinkles. And can you hear me good?
Yeah, you sound good.
Okay. Let's make sure the mic. Sorry about that. Yeah, I'll put that in a Facebook group chat and see what we come up with. I just can't think of anybody off the top of my head, but I know they're out there in Charlotte, so we'll see what we come up with. So,
Arch. Oh. Arch, I have no answers for you, buddy. Sorry, I was reading one of the questions in the chat.
So Tech Junkie had a follow-up. The issue is the turbulence more than 800 CFM. So what do you mean by turbulence? What is it noise? Is that what you mean by turbulence? Or is your static pressure all over the place? I don't really know what he means by that. Maybe he'll send another message in and clarify.
I was watching it might have been one of Gary's of it. There was somebody posted something not long ago, and they were talking about how if your trunk is not long enough. So for example, those units where they just put the T right there, or even God forbid, one of those spider duct systems. But if there's not a long enough trunk, you'll never get proper readings because of the I guess the word's turbulence, but basically where it's bouncing back at the unit, you'll never get a proper static pressure reading. So I'm not saying that's what's going on here, but it does make me wonder when they're saying that they have such low static and then they are hearing things, the lower that static is, you shouldn't be hearing any. I mean, even with a single stage system, she should be quiet,
Right. Yeah. So that does happen where, because when the air first comes out of the blower, it is all velocity pressure, and then it takes a little bit of space after that for that velocity pressure to convert into static pressure. And so if you don't have that space with no takeoffs or no bends, then you'll get a lot of bouncing around. And if you try to read your static pressure, you're going to see a number all over the place. And sometimes that happens. I mean, you try to read static pressure on the system, even my system. I had kind of limited space, and I had to put a plenum right off the unit, and then I had to put a side tap off the plenum to go to the rest of my ductwork. And so that plenum, it's really hard to get a good consistent reading. I've drilled a bunch of holes in it trying to look for a spot, and I finally found one, and it's because of that. So so he's saying there is no way to measure the static with the ductwork that he has. So if you're having, I was going up to one of the other comments here, you can hear and feel noise at 2 or 3 registers. The others seem fine. So it may be that those 2 or 3 registers, you need to move that takeoff off the trunk and go downstream, go down the trunk and give yourself some nice clear trunk, and then take off and connect to that duct again. And maybe the duct has to kind of backtrack a little bit, but you need to, maybe do that. So there's a lot of good rules in Manual D. Manual D is a great book to read because they've tested all this stuff, and it gets a little strict. There's some things that they're like, you shouldn't do that, and I'm like, I've totally done that. I've been just fine. But but at least you know, like, if the world was your oyster and you could determine everything, that you could build the house around your ducts, this is how it should be. And then if certain things you can't have your way, okay, well, I made a concession here. Let me do this to make up for the concession that I just made. So those ACA manuals are pretty good to teach you that kind of stuff.
I've asked, I sent them an email asking them if they want to come on our show sometime, but maybe I'm still too small of potatoes for them to. Some people think you're just trying to get them on your, I've had this, guys think you're just trying to get them on your live show to get them in a gotcha. And I'm like, I'm not trying to get anybody. Come on my show, get on your soapbox, and come on. Come one and come all.
Yeah. They I know they usually make the circuit on certain circles. And so, but I tell you, if they were smart, they would come around to some of these other podcasts that maybe they haven't heard of, because this is the grassroots. These are the guys that want to do it right. They're tuning in on, Tuesday night, and they want to do it right. This is how you reach them. And I'm not blaming them. I'm not calling out anybody in particular, but for years, it seemed like a lot of these best practices, people talked about them, but then they also acted like gatekeepers. And they're like, well, you're supposed to do this, you're supposed to do that. And it's incredibly difficult, but you're a hack if you don't do it, but you're probably not going to do it anyway. And that is just so wrong. Like, we should not have this gatekeeper mentality where we overly inflate how hard it is to do things the right way. Like, we need to we don't need more standards and rules and codes. We need to simplify the ones that we have, and show people that it is attainable to do better work. I hate this gatekeeper mentality that a lot of organizations have had over the years, because that's not how you gain mass adoption.
That's a really good point. I've often wondered, that there is something to be said for knowledge is power, reading all of these manuals, becoming the best at your craft before you even simply lay out a duct system, right? If somebody wanted to be on your level, but I almost feel like it would be great, and I'm just kind of throwing this out there, if they were to, and I say they, it doesn't have to be ACA, it could be anybody, But
Mhm.
make a like you said, in a perfect world, this is what the ductwork would look like. Now we know every
Yeah.
house is different. You're not, but in a perfect world, we would do round duct versus square, right? Or the duct would be this long and it would be this, like, actually lay it out for, I don't know, a 3-ton system. This is in a perfect world what the most balanced, most perfect ductwork system would look like. And I think if they did that, I'm not saying that it would eliminate all issues, because guys would probably just make that another rule of thumb that ruins our industry. But at least maybe, just maybe, some of these folks might be like, oh, I see where you're going
Yeah.
now. I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm just a thought.
Yeah, there was a really cool article on that was written by Neil Comparetto a few years ago, and he's in your area, I think, or maybe just a little west of you. They're in Central Virginia. You're on like Eastern Virginia, right?
I
Is
am,
that where
yeah,
you're?
but I
Okay,
grew up on the other side of Virginia, so
okay, gotcha.
now I'm curious.
Yeah, Neil Comparetto is a really sharp home performance, high performance HVAC contractor, and he wrote an article on HVAC school as a tech tip, and it was like the 10 Commandments of ductwork. And it really kind of encompassed that. It was more principle based. So instead of like the letter of the law, you just had things like your home is the biggest duct in the system. Treat your home like a duct, because it is. It's all you're doing is moving air out of your supply register through the giant duct that is your home. That's getting sucked back through the return. And it was just a lot of common sense things. And I would say that that's what we need to go back to. The rules of thumb need to be based on math, but then once we've done that, I think we can generalize them. I like to tell people that a good duct system is like a tree. You need a trunk that's longer than your branches. If you got a tree that the trunk is short, the branches are long, the tree is not sustainable. Like, something's going to happen to it. It's going to break. It's not going to function correctly. And that's the same thing with the duct system. If we got to get air from point A to point B, let's send that air down a really big highway, and then we'll have a short little exit to get to where we need to go. That's not always the cheapest install. That's not always the easiest install. The easiest thing is a flex bomb. And if 25 feet of flex don't work, then we're gonna tape but two ends of flex together and we'll get it the rest of the way. But that is that short tree with giant branches, and that just doesn't work. So that fixes a lot of things when we can say we want to run a trunk as far as we can and have branches as short as possible. Another thing that helps, and this goes back to some antiquated thinking, is that we've got to get away from putting supply registers above windows on exterior walls. There's nothing wrong with it per se, but the reason why we used to do that was older houses that weren't insulated well and had single pane windows that would frost up and have condensate all the time. We would wash that window with warm air so that it wouldn't get condensation on it. Now we've got well insulated walls, and we got double pane, triple pane, we got really good windows. And so now we don't have to throw hot and cold air. And when you think about where is our trunks normally in a house, it's going down the center of the crawl space, center of the attic. So if we can branch off and we can cut 10 to 12 feet of length off our duct system, that corresponds to lower static pressure and just better performance. And then we just use a register that can throw the air. Once it gets in the room on an interior wall, it just throws it towards the exterior wall. And by the time it hits it, that air is mixed with the room air. You don't throw cold air against a window. In the summertime, the windows is condensating on the outside. You don't run into those things. And so just getting away from some of those antiquated practices and establishing some new rules of thumb that just work for newer houses. And I teach a class, and I'll start back up in the fall, but it's HVAC design for the real world. And it kind of plucks all the things that really are important, the things that really move the needle. And then some of the other things, it's like, okay, well, you can, in your load calculation, you can try to find the R value of your door, but your door is 3 feet by 7 feet. Make sure you get the R value of your wall, which is like the rest of the house, right. Make sure you try to get the close to your U values of your windows. You know, get that part right. The door will take care of itself. It's that kind of thinking. Just knowing where the rules of thumb are okay, where it's okay to fudge it, and where you really need to spend the time and get it right and do the math on the other stuff.
I love that. I tell you, I just looked at the time. Usually about, we start at 8:30, usually about 9 o'clock. I usually try to mix it up a little bit. I try to do that goofy invention segment, but we've been flipping, rolling. The questions have been rolling in.
Yeah, we got a lot of good questions in here.
Yeah,
I'll go as long as you want to, man.
This has been one of my favorite shows I've done. I love all of our guests. If one of our other guests catches this, but this has been a lot of fun so far. Let me do that. Yeah. So a lot of the folks that watch us know that I am goofy, and I do a goofy invention segment, and some of my inventions have been very goofy. But that said, we were talking before the show, and yours isn't so goofy. You want to share what you were telling me about, an invention that you would create, I guess, or throw out there?
Yeah, so I've been really interested in HVAC performance. Like, unfortunately, I don't have many hobbies, and so one of my hobbies is home automation and electronics. So yeah, even though I didn't go into electronics in high school, I kind of sort of still circled back to it. But I've been working on some low-cost HVAC sensors. And there's an app, a platform. The brand is Shelly. They're out of the United Kingdom. And they make all kinds of home automation stuff, but they make some devices that you can attach temperature and humidity sensors to them. And so I'm a big proponent of Measure Quick, which of course allows you to do a non-invasive system testing, which means that you can hook up temperature probes and temperature clamps without gauging up, and you can do a lot of diagnostics with just that little information there. And so I've, on my system here, on my Bosch system, I've been working on some prototypes for that HVAC system monitoring. And so I have a supply temperature and humidity sensor and a return temperature and humidity sensor. On the outdoor unit, I have a true suction line temperature, a true liquid line temperature, and an outdoor temperature sensor. And that is really all you need to take those readings. You can actually plug them into Measure Quick manually, and it'll tell you how your system is running. And so what I'm about to do now, in fact, I just got notification that the part's coming in. I got a wind sensor from like an RC drone, and that can read your duct velocity. And so if we inserted this probe in the duct, and we're able to take something like the True Flow grid from the Energy Conservatory and quantify our airflow. Okay, my airflow today is 800 CFM, and that equals whatever feet per minute that this wind sensor is reading. Now, as your filters load up, as your system starts to degrade, it will read a degradation in your duct velocity, your wind speed in your duct. And that has a one-to-one relationship. That's fan law 1. So as velocity goes down, CFMs go down, and there's no curve to it. It is completely linear. So now if you have a device that reads that analog signal saying, well, it was sending out 3.3 volts and now it's sending 3.1 volts, that equates to X velocity, which equates to X CFMs. And now your airflow has gone down by 20%. You have a problem. And so it's sort of like having a building automation system, but for residential. And we've had that stuff in commercial. It's super expensive. And I would love just to see that become more mainstream. I call it Measure Quick in a box. And I'm just trying to prove sort of proof of concept that it would work. Now, if I could go on Amazon, I could order $50 worth of parts and put this thing together in my garage. You can't tell me that a company that does this every day couldn't do that, and they couldn't team up with somebody like Measure Quick, and we could start putting these on rooftop package units and rental houses, and we could not only know how our system is performing, but also what is our delivered capacity. If we know our temperature and humidity coming in and coming out, we know our airflow, we can do some psychrometrics, we can do a bit of math, and I can tell you that your 2-ton system is putting out 22,000 BTUs. And out of that 22,000 BTUs is putting out 16,000 sensible and 6,000 latent. And I can also tell you if we have a power monitor, which you can totally get also that reads the wattage, now I can tell you what the COP is, what the operating SEER is. All this cool information. You can have a live look in on your system from halfway around the world and know that your system is either running good or not. And I think that has real potential in this current labor market because we're trying to get butts in trucks. And never before have there been fewer butts and more trucks. And the butts that we are getting in trucks are less experienced butts, right? We're just trying to hire kids and get them in a
just a
truck and
butt.
get them.
That's
Yeah,
all they are.
right.
They're just a butt.
Right. And so what if instead of sending people out to do preventative maintenance on the system where you're gauging up and you're losing a little bit of refrigerant and maybe you're making mistakes and this kid doesn't really know what he's doing, what if you just trained him to go out there and clean a unit? And then you had one or two people at the shop that every now and then they just did a live look in on the system and made sure everything was cool. Or if there was a service call and the person said, my unit's not keeping up on a hot day, and you do a live look in and you're like, yeah, I mean, you've got a 2-ton unit, it's only putting out 1.3 tons. And you start looking at it, it kind of looks like it may be low on gas, but it may be a bad TXV. You start narrowing it down to that kid before you send them out there. And eventually, hopefully, they'll get better and they can start doing those diagnostics themselves. But if you can decouple the troubleshooting and the performance checks from a PM, and you just teach them how to clean the unit really good, then I think our labor shortage starts to look a little bit better.
It's really cool. Yeah, Measure Quick and a number of other companies out there, but I would say they're probably leading the way. Is just trying to fill the gap, between. Sometimes it's not necessarily that. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's not that they don't care or anything like that. It's just, you don't know what you don't know. And maybe
Right.
it'll fill in the gaps on some of that ignorance. But I do want to say, because I think the FTC requires me to say so, and you've said the word Measure Quick 100 times, they have sponsored some of our content on our YouTube channel. So I do want to throw that out there just to cover me.
Gotcha.
That said, we're going to wrap up in just a moment. Those of you that are in the chat, do me a favor. We end our shows every week the same way, and that is we all know there are some bad apples in our industry. If you didn't know that, just go look at Tim's Instagram, and he will show you some of those funny jokers. But if you know a good apple, if you know a good electrician, plumber, or heating and air company, share them in the chat. Share where they're located. Let's show those folks some love, the good apples. And who knows, someone in your area may see your comment. You might be able to show them more than some love. That said, Tim, I ask everybody the same question, wrapping up our show. If mom or, your closest family member of whoever that is, may not be mom, whoever your closest family member is in the market for a heating and air system, what's the first piece of advice you're going to give them?
Do your research, get multiple estimates, be the smartest person in the room when they come out. And if they're wearing a white shirt, don't trust them. Not all white shirts are bad, but my goodness, most of them are.
If it's a white shirt and it's still white,
Right.
and it's the end of the day, they haven't gotten their hands dirty that day.
Yeah. He hasn't even attempted to fix the unit. So, yeah, just you have to do your research, choose wisely, establish a relationship with the contractor with the service agreement before. If they're not working out, fire them, find another one. That way, when you actually have to spend some real money, you've already been working with this company and you've got a feel for them. You don't want to be in a position where you're at the mercy of the contractor because it's July, it's hot, everybody's booked up, and now you're at the mercy of meth mechanical, crackhead heating and air, or heroin heating and air. You just, or crackhead comfort services. Sorry. You don't want to be at the mercy of those guys because there's a reason why they're not busy in July.
Boom. You just said it all right there. I if and when I ever get to meet you and shake your hand, I'm going to buy you a white shirt. I'm going to get you, Tim's Heating and Air, and I'm going to put one of those American flags on the sleeve and
giant hand holding a wrench. All of those vans are all painted the same colors. It's like red, white, and blue, and like a light blue. And there's a giant hand holding a wrench, and it's always like, it's just like I see him going down the road. I'm like, I already know what kind of company that is. Um,
There's this I was just talking to somebody last week. Let me see if I can find him. There's this guy that I think he's the most famous guy. Sorry, I know we're supposed to be wrapping up the show, but let me see if I can find this joker.
You're good.
Okay, I see one of his pictures where he's with somebody else. Hold on one second. Okay. You'll know exactly who I'm talking about as soon as I find him. Okay, here he is. Okay. So this guy right here, hold on. Let me see if I can share my screen.
Yeah, that was going to be the test.
Share screens. All right, can you see my screen?
No, I'm sorry, I can't.
Oh. Is that what it's going to be? That's how we're going to end the show. There's this guy. Let me see if I can find him in my phone. Okay. There's this guy. I just told somebody the other night he's the most famous guy in HVAC, and we don't even know his name. Hold on one second. Bear with me.
Yeah.
Haley edits my videos or puts us on our podcast. She's probably gonna be like, "What is he doing?" Here he is.
Okay.
This guy right here.
Oh,
because he's on everybody's websites.
He is, man. It's like like the default stock picture. There's one of them where he's an electrician and he doesn't have any eyebrows. Like they edited it as eyebrows, or maybe he doesn't have them. And the comment is like, "Never trust an electrician that doesn't have eyebrows." Yeah.
Like, look at
yellow Bob the Builder hard hat and the
yeah, that's what we were talking about. How they probably think all heating and air guys wear yellow or wear hard hats. But I always joke. This is probably the most famous guy in HVAC because every time you see a stock website for a heating and air company, there's that guy's picture again.
Yeah, and he looks way too happy to be doing HVAC. Like this guy looks like he has a lot to live for. And we know that's not right. On a rooftop with a hard hat. I mean, it makes perfect sense. Right? But I love the thing, like they're wearing a hard hat. They're on a rooftop. They're looking at a unit. No safety glasses, no gloves, live electrical panel from them. They're sticking their fingers in there, but they got a hard hat on. It's you gotta love stock photos.
I'm gonna name that guy. Who knows? Someday we might just actually get to meet that fellow. But I think he's you know what would make that picture the most perfect picture is if he was wearing a white shirt.
Yes. There's other ones. There's the guy working on the mini split, and he's dressed up like Wario from Super Mario Brothers. He's got like the overalls and like a green hat, and like his overalls have like reflective stripes on them. Like, are you worried about getting hit by a car in somebody's sunroom? And he's like checking voltage on the filter cover of a mini split or something like that.
Don't make fun of me. I think he might be in some of our videos because the girl that edits our videos, she'll sometimes just pull B-roll of things, and I'll say the word mini split and she'll grab something. Sorry, Haley, if you see this. But she'll grab things and I'll be like, there's, like you said, there's Wario again or whatever. So
right. Yeah. If I see that, I'm gonna roast it, man. Just be warned.
please. I want to say please don't, but then a part of me wants to say please do, because I think that would be memorable right there.
I'm getting messages from people be like, please roast one of my videos. And I'm like, I don't want to be known for this, all right? It was just something I did. I love it.
Well, cool. Well, do me a favor. We're going to wrap up, I guess. Just plug all your stuff. Where can folks find you?
My YouTube channel and Instagram and Facebook. Those are some of the social media platforms I'm on. It's at Tim DeStasio HVAC, so all one word. I'm on LinkedIn, Tim DeStasio. There's a space between DE and S if you do a search for me on LinkedIn. So DE space Stasio on LinkedIn. And just please support my YouTube channel. I just started monetizing it. So I'm sorry if you get an ad or two, but I'm doing these videos at the expense of, and all my educational stuff, it's free. And so Every now and then I charge, a couple of bucks for a class that I do on Zoom, but it's at the expense of my earning potential. I mean, you think about somebody that's acquired a lot of the experience that we get after 25 plus years, and I use some of that time to make videos. And so, yeah, just give me a follow, all that good stuff that you know to do with the YouTube channel. And I try to be very responsive to comments. So ask a question, reach out to me. My email is Tim DeStasio HVAC at gmail.com. It's just something I set up, and I am very responsive. If you need any kind of HVAC consulting, design a class, a one-on-one, and then keep on the lookout for the classes that I run in the fall on Zoom. There's always a lot of HVAC design and diagnostics and other similar classes, advanced classes like that I try to make available for a very affordable price. I'm just trying to cover my time a little bit. So by all means, if you follow me on social media, you'll find out about those classes.
I like it. I might actually attend some of those. So I like
Thank
it.
you. Great.
Good enough. Well, thanks for joining us. Those of you that are in the chat, thank you for supporting us as well. Make sure you subscribe to Tim's channel. We will be back next week, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific. Again, we've got an awesome guest. He's one of the top contractors on the East Coast. That said, in the meantime, make it a great week. We'll see you then.